Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you for turning out. This is a pleasant surprise. Really hope you're going to enjoy the next half an hour. Just to introduce myself, I'm Ian Mottershed. I'm VP Marketing, and we are Imagen, and we are a Cambridge-based software company, and we are creators of Imagen Enterprise Video Platform. And what that does is it allows businesses to organise large quantities of media, store it securely, preserve it, monetize it, and get as much value from any amount of content as possible. And that's all through a nice, great looking web interface, so it can be branded for your organization. So that's what we've been doing. We've been doing it for 20 years, 20 years of solid growth, and that's the topic for today's case study. So at BVE, we're actually celebrating those 20 years in business. And that's managing media for leading brands like IMG, Endemol, Shine, as well as collections of national importance for British Library, Imperial War Museums. And of course we've seen a huge amount of change in those 20 years in business. We've all experienced the way that we all consume and access video differently now to 20 years ago. And when you think about all of the technology and infrastructure that underpins that access to video, that's presented us with all kinds of challenges, but opportunities as well. Now, I've been with the company for 15 years, and over that time it's been a fascinating journey, and the company's changed, and it's changed so much that it's unrecognisable now compared to where we were 15 years ago. And to help tell that story, I'm joined today by two people who have shaped our business and steer the ship more than anyone else, really. So we've got our founder, Tony Blake, over on the right there, and our CEO, Tom Blake. And yes, they are related, and that's all part of the story. So let's start with the beginning. So Tony, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you into the digital media industry?
Yes, well, good morning, everybody. Strangely enough, I started my life in horticulture, and in the 70s, I worked growing and selling houseplants to supermarkets. And I then started my own business in 1979, importing plants from all around the world and selling them into Tesco's and the like. And one of the things we did was to put a little label in every plant that we sold with a picture of what the plant should look like when it matured and a description on the back. And we used to call it selling a promise, because you had obviously a twig with this lovely picture of a flower and so on. Then I had I started a joint venture with a Dutch printing company in 1980, and I was flying over there for a meeting one day, and I read an article in a Time magazine about a thing called Laserdisc. Now, none of you look old enough to remember what Laserdiscs were, but they looked like a 12-inch record, but they allowed you to archive film and stills on them in an analog format. And the interesting thing about them was that you could get up to 50,000 still pictures on a Laserdisc, and they were frame addressable. So I thought, if we took all these pictures and got them onto the Laserdisc and wrote a little database to access them, I could put a kiosk in garden centres to allow people to find plants that met criteria they were looking for. And that was how it really all started. I then managed to spend through the 80s the rather large sum of money that I'd made by a business I was involved with going public. And I sold, I think, 6 systems through that period. And all I can say is that being a pioneer is not a very good return on investment. So rule 1 is don't be a pioneer. So there we are, that's how it all began.
Okay, thank you, Tony. So that was the origins of our company, but I know that when I joined, we'd moved on a little bit, and we'd gone from the gardener's questions answered systems that we can see on the screen to some more substantial projects for the likes of, the Ministry of Defence and some other projects like that. So what happened after Gardener's Question Time? How do we move on to a project-based company?
Well, firstly, I'm surprised to see that up there, because that was in about 1984 in a supermarket in Sudbury in Suffolk, that picture. And yes, amazing. I won't go into all of that, but in having just got to the breadline with my family and my 4 children, Tom here of which was one, and I'm not sure how, you were probably about 13 or 14 in 89 or something, when I was just about out of money and they were on a diet of cabbage soup. I started to look at other technologies which were emerging, digital technologies of CD, CD-ROM, CD-TV, which was the Commodore version, CDI, which was the Philips version, and these were all the forerunners to DVD and getting video digitized, moving video digitized. And quite by chance, I was doing some work with Sony, and they introduced me to the Ministry of Defence at the time of the first Gulf War. And there was a thing called CRV, Component Recorded Video Disc, which was a write once, read many video disc. So we were talking to the photographic archivist at the MOD, and he said, well, I've got somebody from the Navy coming in, and he needs pictures of the Gulf because they're going in. Basically, there's 50,000 on the wall there. I'm just going to have to tell him to, help himself effectively. So we said, what we could do is we could take all of those, we can transfer them onto Laserdisc, and then with our database, we'll be able to allow you to find them very, very quickly and then print them out. He said, right, just do it. Now that is the dream to anybody in the technology world, because, budgets are the end of anything we ever wanted to do. But there was no restriction on the budget there, and we just went ahead and produced this amazing system. And then through the 90s, we worked exclusively with the defence sector, and of course through the 90s it moved from the analog world into the digital world for video, and we migrated from Laserdisc through DVD and the emergence of MPEG encoding and so on, into having a fully fledged digital asset management system. And that sort of how the business started to grow. There we are.
Okay. As I recall, we had some great software, and we were rolling on from project to project, but we still had many challenges. It would seem that we had this great IP for managing lots of media for the prestigious companies like Ministry of Defence and British Pathé, but we had a few problems just because we couldn't really carry on like that. So what were some of the challenges we had with having that kind of just IP approach to projects?
Well, you're absolutely right. Our software, 80% of our software was delivered with every project that we did, but we had to put a veneer on the top of it to make it bespoke for any given client. So British Pathé, you mentioned, was the first commercial archive we worked with in 2001, and we got that digitized and put it online. It was the first commercial archive to go online. Then in 2002, we got a project with BBC Monitoring to put in a digital distribution system for this amazing facility down in Caversham near Reading. I don't know whether any of you are familiar with it, but it monitors the world's broadcasts for breaking news, largely for defence, but few other purposes. And so we got this job to put in this system underpinned by Imagen. And of course, it suddenly put us on the map, because we went from a little kind of £300,000 turnover company to suddenly turning over, £1.5 million, £2 million overnight. And some of the big boys suddenly were aware of us being around. And I remember somebody coming into the office just to see what these little minnows were all about. And he said, "So how scalable are you?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, with what you're doing." I said, "Well, we just get projects and we get more projects as we can." He said, "Well, there's no future in that. Projects only make you money when you're awake, but product will make you money when you're asleep. You need to become a product company." I thought, that's a very smart thing to say. So my partner Paul and I said, that's my business partner, by the way, said, right, what we've got to do here is to turn Imagen into a product. So the plan was, with the next project that we got, we would actually productize the code. Well, that was a lovely idea, but of course the pressures of delivering projects by time the deadline was coming along and so on, the customer was saying, "Hang on a minute, where's my product? And oh, by the way, I'd like it to do this and that." So there was a thing called scope creep that crept into it. And we just failed miserably and went through the noughties with this great idea and probably 20 projects, and still never managed our dream and never produced the product.
Yeah, I went through all that phase too, and as a project delivery manager, that was a tough time. So we would roll on from project to project. It was all very interesting, and we had some great clients that we were servicing, but it did seem like where was this company going to go? And I think it's probably time that Tony, you introduced when Tom. How did Tom get involved in the company?
Well, it was all part of the breeding plan back in the 70s, but when we got to I was tearing my hair out, being well into my 60s, and Tom's elder brother lives in America, and he at the time was in Houston. And we were over visiting him and the grandchildren, and I was playing around a golf with him, and I said, "I have no idea what I'm going to do with this business." This was in May, I think, of about 2009, something about that. I said, "We've got great clients, fantastic software, core software, wonderful people like Ian, who suffered at the coalface looking after all these projects, but we can't achieve getting it into a product. I can't go on forever. I have no idea what we're going to do." And so there was that was that. We just went and had a few beers, as you do after that, and cried in our soup, and that was the end of it. And then I came back, and then that Christmas, Tom and his family were around at the house having our Christmas lunch, and as he left, he said to me, at the time he was living in Switzerland, by the way, working for Medtronic, who are a large pharmaceutical. He was their European marketing director, so big job. And he said, "We must talk about Cambridge Imaging," which was our name at the time, this year. I thought, well, where did that come from? And then he left.
Right, so Tom, you were living in Switzerland. You had an absolute top flight job. We won't go into details, but you had a sensational career behind you and in front of you, obviously. You had this amazing lifestyle. So why on earth would you give all that up and risk it all for a relatively small Cambridgeshire software company?
I'm still trying to work that one out, actually, and I can tell you exactly what happened though. And between that May and December, my older brother Matthew and I had been fishing down in the south of Wales, and late one night, sat outside the pub, we decided we were going to pull half-smoked cigars to see who got the shortest cigar and was going to end up running the business. Needless to say, I pulled the shortest cigar, or perhaps not. Let's see how things play out over the fullness of time. But it was we'd obviously listened to what Dad was doing, but didn't really know anything about it. Just understood that there was as described, a great client base, the foundations of a great platform, and it just seemed to me that, seemed to both of us actually, that it needed some management infrastructure and a bit of support, and actually possibly even some third-party capital to allow the business to shut the doors to projects for a period of time, and then to reopen the doors once the golden product had been created. And sitting there in Geneva, shutting my doors so my boss didn't know that I was working on the Imagen business plan while I was meant to be scripting some marketing plan for the next deep brain stimulator. It became very obvious and absolutely compelling to me that it was something to take on, and so I moved myself, family, and back to the UK and took on Cambridge Imaging Systems as was then.
Yeah, that's quite a brave move. So, you came into a company that already had established clients, but I think you recognised that we had this fantastic, what we consider a media asset management product back then. It was still a project-based company when Tom arrived, and I think we knew it was going to take some time to create a product out of what we had, and we've gone through a number of challenges in that process, and it probably took longer than we thought. I mean, what other challenges do you think we had during that process of creating a product from what we had?
Well, I've still got a copy of the business plan that I wrote back then. It's always a funny thing to do, go back and look at your old business plans and see how much of it has actually played out. It's always going to take twice as long and cost 3 times as much, and that's a well-known fact, and the fact it is. And that's what happened to us. But over that time, we spent a lot of time with our existing clients, describing to them the green fields that were on the other side of this journey, and their loyalty, which we really called upon over that time. If they could sustain that loyalty and could be patient with us, then we were going to come out with something that was scalable, was going to be continually innovative, continually iterate, and that everybody would get the benefit, that economy of scale that you get through build one, sell many. But it does take a while, and sometimes certain sectors in particular, people still have very defined workflows. They're used to a way of working, and seem much more certain that they need to change the product or the solution to work with an existing work practice, rather than modify work practices a little bit to get the benefit that technology can really offer. And some of those things have been challenging and continue to be a challenge, actually. The biggest of all, though, without question, is turning a company that is a project company into thinking like more of a commercial organisation, and culture change in a small business that completely flat structured, to starting to have to put into place some reporting lines, management infrastructure, even things like appraisals and performance reviews, whatever you would call them. All of that infrastructure that you need as a business to be able to have an operation that can scale. It's not just the product that needs to scale, it's the whole processes that go around that product that was really important to do.
Yeah, I've just realised as well that in that progression and growth of the company, we had to learn how to market ourselves as well, and that was a huge challenge coming from quite a techie, geeky software firm. And Tom brought his his expertise of marketing with him, and it's just occurred to me that sat here you've got like the lineage of the company. You've got Tony suited and booted with tie. Tony was used to sort of dealing with Ministry of Defence and so on. Then you've got Tom without the tie, and then finally we've got the marketing, orange T-shirts for the So that's the kind of like where we're at now. So we've had to learn how to market the product, and also to educate the market in a lot of ways, because not just in the media space but across the different verticals we're now working. We're telling everyone that there is a problem with video, and that they need to address that issue. They need to put in some management of their video content. So we've had to become very marketing enabled as well as part of that process as well. So throughout all of that, our history and growth. So what's been the outcome of I think now we're getting into a new phase of the company. So where's the future for the company, Tom? Where are we heading?
Well, we call it good luck, call it foresight. I'll call it foresight. The technology and the technicians in the business, so Paul, who is Tony's founding partner, and Tim Jobling, who's our CTO, they were tackling problems of scale before they were really problems. They were designing a product with a distributed architecture that could, and that means that we can install modular components across multiple servers and can scale that out to any sort of demand. They were designing, or they were challenged by how to deal with massive storage problems, and came up with the concept of object-style storage, way before cloud computing was around. I couldn't tell you that from the business plan I was writing in Geneva back then. So it was lucky for me, but it was foresight of the technicians that they were designing a platform that was ahead of modern computing. Now, what that's meant now, and where that means for our future, is that the cloud has now, rather than just being a topic for discussion, has matured into a legitimate, and I'm talking public cloud infrastructure here, not just sort of your private cloud, but public cloud infrastructure has now hit this point at which it is both economic, scalable, and we're all getting comfortable about the security aspects of it now. And Imagen was beautifully architected to slot directly into that infrastructure. So what we've got here is we've got a very nimble business that doesn't own any machinery, doesn't have any tin. We can still install Imagen on premises and in people's private clouds if that's how they want it to be deployed. But we can equally deploy the platform on the public cloud. We can auto-deploy. You can walk up to the website, put your credit card in at one end of the scale, and auto-deploy a micro-sized system, all the way through to having a globally distributed broadcast contained content distribution network for broadcast video content. And some of the projects that we're getting involved in now, some of the product sales, should I say, that we're getting involved in now, are taking petabytes of content, storing them in multiple data centers, geographically distributed all around the world on 4 continents, in one of them, for instance, so we're allowing people within Australia to have a same level of performance playback experience via a web browser, clipping, partial restore of original broadcast masters, and delivery over accelerated file delivery directly from their nearest point of presence. Those things are really difficult to do, but it was that technical foresight that has allowed us to do it. And now, from my point of view, it's how can we build and market that capability from a company of our size, which is still very small relative to the technology that we have. How can we market ourselves to convince and demonstrate to the world's leading brands that we can be and will be their content distribution partner for all finished content, even down to the point of being able to create your own paid-for business-to-consumer subscription models? How can we get to show ourselves to be able to not only preserve content to the standards the British Film Institute demand upon us, with all checksums and et cetera, with multiple different formats, but going in the same platform to allow a consumer to be able to create a clip of their favourite tennis moment or their favourite soccer moment, wherever they are on the planet, and allow them to pay for that and to share it with people that are in their community.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's, as I said before, we're at a media show here, but certainly for the product, we just see such a range of potential across, many different aspects of business who all have the same problems on their hands, and whether that's the security of their video, maintaining the brand integrity, it's partly architected by some of the clever guys we've got back at the base today, but partly we're in a great position just because through sheer good fortune, the world has got a problem now with video, and we're ideally placed to help with that problem. Well, I think that just brings it to an end quite nicely. So thanks for those thoughts. I'd just like to thank Tom and Tony for showing how we've accomplished 20 years of growth, and thanks to the UKTI for giving us this opportunity to share our journey.